put this in perspective. When you're homeless, you realize that your most lethal weapon most of the time is going to be a blade. And, when you're cutting something, you realize that you do damage. You do, like, worse damage in a way than a bullet in some forms and fashions. But, like, when you cut someone, like I learned as a kid, if these people are his parents, okay, and they grew up in troubled times in black communities, how come they don't know what a knife does? Okay, how come they didn't tell their kid, like, okay, listen, son, I seen people die right in front of me because I'm from the ghetto and I'm black, and we all have seen murders and rapes, and every one of our families has been beaten. So, like, son, if you're going to yield a weapon, a knife will kill. And you can't go back. Sometimes you can't reverse what a knife does. A blade does, but you could reverse what a bullet does. So, like, where is the education? I had a gun when I was 7 because we lived 14 miles from the nearest store. I was making out of wood my father worked at Schrade, little LB5s out of wood because we made Christmas ornaments. I had a little, like, jigsaw, hacksaw, little baby blades. It's Copen saw. As a kid, I learned that. So, like, and I had wooden knives, and I wasn't allowed to have knives until a certain age, and, and then you realize knives are very dangerous. And then, like, I was killing birds and squirrels and chipmunks, and before getting, my license to do deer and everything, and I just was like, it just is destructive. If I'm not going to eat an animal, there's no reason to kill it. So I never really took an interest to get involved, and I knew the damages. But when I moved to Florida, there was kids using BB guns shooting at me and shit, and, like, these kids still had a little bit of, like, earth around them. Not just urban areas, but, they were dangerous. And I've held, like, a dead chipmunk in my hand that I split open with a hollow point right in the face, okay, from probably like 25, 30 yards. There was not much of his head left there at all. Okay, and you get to see that. And then the last thing I had was an AR-15 pellet gun back in, like, 1984, and that was one of the most powerful guns at that time, pellet gun. And I was, like, probably about 10 yards, maybe less, from this little bird. He was yellow with white and black dots on it. He was like, boom, nothing but a ball of feathers. I'm like, you know what? It's way powerful than the last BB gun I had, but, like, what am I going to do with this? I already had a 22, and that I was allowed to use. When my father was okaying it and he was there, and I was beaten. Like, if I got bad in the car, they pulled over and they got a stick and put it on the dashboard. Okay, my father had he was a barber, and he had the shaver, the leather belt. My mom had wooden spoons, and I took a beating, dude. Okay, I was locked in closets. I stood in the corner for hours after being bad. Okay, so I had consequence, and if I showed any kind of sign like gang shit, it was, they sheltered me from that because they came from the city, and my father was a greaser in New York, in Brooklyn and Bronx and all that crap. I mean, to the degree that they were back in those days. And then the Greek people and the Italian people and the Irish people, they suffered prejudice and everything, and they were like, we're no mixing here. No fucking weapons or dagos in here. No greasy butt fucking Greeks in here, you fucking prick. Like, hey, Spartacus, wrong fucking tavern, asshole. That's fucking how it was. So, like, where did this kid not get the education, and yet he's in pictures with guns, he's making gang signs, he yields a knife in school? Like, what's the bottom line here? The bottom fucking line. It is what it is, but it's frustrating because So many of us are done with the games, and we know that this is a racial ploy to instigate people. And what I'm doing is I am instigated. I'm instigated to try and think about it, because when something happens to me, I don't go out there with a knife or a gun or think about how can I get them or how can I embellish myself by getting, like an expensive fucking, you know, pair of sneakers or a fucking new gun. This is where I'm at. I'm emotionally uh powered to be inspired and intellectually invested to look at the problems and issues and matters and solve the problems. Obviously, like, my parents, they don't solve all the problems. They didn't do everything, but I had a little bit of schooling. And my mom came from a house that was not the best either. There's a reason that I don't, you know, condone excessive drinking more than a certain ambiance or whatever, smoking cigarettes and stuff like that, because with great power comes great responsibility. Okay. And what we had here is what happens if you take the guns away. We have people stabbing each other. Okay. And people pitted against each other if this affects everybody. So, like, I'm in it because I still have to work in the outside world. I get people coming at me. I mean, best description is a 13-year-old that pretends they were a slave and that I had something to do with oppression, and I'm 51. So, you do the math. 1973. That bothers me. And you know what? When I had trouble and I was beat up by the cops and falsely prosecuted by Mike Satz, all these people, you could look the motherfucking shit up. You know, Martin Luther King dreams from Martin Luther King. The dream lives for me. Bruce Lee, yes, I flow like water and I fill the cup and take the form, but eventually, you know, wake up the dragon. I didn't do this to me. You did this to me. All I did was want to paint fucking pictures and do little happy things. And it had nothing to do with being white. You know? You know? Look at all these artists. So many artists. I'm forgetting names right now. Anyway. Hey, good luck with all this shit.